How you doing, YouTube? I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report, and I have two three-time returning guests with me. Cathy Ladman,
wow.
Bryn Mooser, three times.
Three times.
You have entered a very exclusive
club.
This
is the charm.
Yeah, you know this is what is it? Alec Baldwin's done SNL like 47 times, or Steve Martin has done it like 1,000 times. Yeah. You guys are entering that phase.
Right. 3, 1,000, so close, isn't it? Yes.
Well, we've only been doing this for a year.
That's true. Proportionately, you're right, it's the same.
Yeah, by proportions, I think you're beating it. Anywho, let's start this thing up. All right, remember Sarah Palin, that kooky chick from Alaska? Well, she wrote a piece on Breitbart.com yesterday. That's where I get all my news. And basically calling for the impeachment of President Obama. We've got a little snippet for you. President Obama's rewarding of lawlessness, including his own, is the foundational problem here. It's not going to get better, and in fact, irreparable harm can be done in this lame duck term as he continues to make up his own laws as he goes along, and, mark my words, will next meddle in the U.S. court system with appointments that will forever change the basic interpretation of our Constitution's roles in protecting our rights. Okay, so she's talking about a lot of things if you read the whole article, and we'll link to it below. She's talking about some of the immigration stuff. She's talking about sort of selecting the Obamacare laws that he's going to enforce, and a whole slew of other things, and court appointments, and executive actions, et cetera, et cetera. So before we get to the specifics, should anyone on earth pay any attention to what Miss Sarah Palin is saying?
No, but I mean, clearly she has a forum. Yeah. And you know, when I was reading this piece on Breitbart.com, first of all, to even open that website, I felt, I'm
sorry,
that's off of my phone now.
I apologize for sending that to you.
Left a virus.
Yes.
But can you imagine if one of your, Hollywood friends had seen you like looking at
over the shoulder?
I have no Hollywood friends.
No, oh, okay.
She's a cartoon. I mean, she's a cartoon to us, but we have to remember that there are people who heed her words. And that's the staggering thing, really. Yeah. You know, that she does hold weight.
How much weight do you think she actually holds? Because I do agree with that. We can make fun of her, but obviously there is some percentage that really digs this woman.
I think that she's still an important figure for a lot of Americans, and I mean, clearly we're talking about her, and she's got this forum on wherever she wants to write a piece like that, she can. She could have written it on the Huffington Post. I'm sure they would have published it as well. And so, I mean, it's scary. You know, she talks about that she's afraid that Obama's going to meddle in the U.S. courts. I hope he meddles in the U.S. courts.
I mean,
please.
I mean, the Constitution as we know it is already being obliterated. Seen last week with that Hobby Lobby, decision. The horses left the barn on that one. Yeah. So all Obama can do, I think, but of course people will label me as a crazy liberal, all I think that he can do is start to repair it.
Yeah, and of course both sides only care about activist judges when they do things that they don't like. Sure. Nobody really seems to have any principle or consistency.
When they're doing stuff that they do like.
Right, then somehow that's out the window. Why can't we get rid of her though? So I get it, there's a certain amount of people that like her, but why does she, like I just heard this week, she may host The View. Like she may be the next. They lost Sherry and what's her name, McCarthy, and now
they're not going to hire her.
No, you don't think so?
No, they're not going to hire her.
No,
would she do it? I think she would probably do it.
Oh, she would do it.
Oh yeah, she's a whore.
Right.
I mean, she is. I mean, she's not a fucking whore, but I mean, she's a media whore.
She's a media whore.
She will do anything.
So do you think?
Well, once you tell me I can use language, boy, I'm right out there.
I appreciate you clearing it before we started. That's one of the benefits of being the third-time guest. You're allowed to start first.
Oh, really? I wasn't allowed to the first
Before the first two, you were not allowed, but now you're allowed.
I just think that when she's out there talking about immigration, it's hard to take anybody from Alaska seriously when they're talking about immigration. Like, if Rick Perry wants to talk about immigration, at least you go, yeah, well, you understand some of the complexities, I'm sure, in Texas, but she's like, where the Russians are immigrating into Alaska? It's unclear. So.
Well, you can still, I mean, you can be a person who lives anywhere and understand that. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't use Rick Perry as a standard for anything.
For the record, that's the first time anyone has ever said anything nice about Rick Perry on the show. That was the most pro-Rick.
Did you read that he refused to shake Obama's hand yesterday?
Yeah, they were going to meet on the tarmac, and he refused to do it. He wanted to take a private meeting, and then Obama didn't want to do that, so they did.
But he still walked out to the tarmac to see him?
No,
or he just wouldn't even do
that? He wouldn't even do that.
He was busy.
Anyway, we don't want to get off your agenda.
Let's not. Okay, so do you think any of these things, like the executive, we've talked a lot about the executive actions on the show, that they're giving him no choice because the Congress won't give him laws.
Yeah.
So they give him no choice. But again, I still do believe in separation of power. So I think both sides are being sort of disingenuous here or something. Is there any of this that you don't like that he's doing? Any of this stuff? The executive actions, any of it?
Okay, personally, I really think he's over a barrel here. I mean, I really don't think they've given him any wiggle room. They don't work with him.
Yeah.
So what's he supposed to do?
So you don't mind the executive action things, which we've also talked about how he's done far less than even George W. Bush.
Let's be honest. If he were not someone whose actions and views I agreed with, I probably would take offense. You know, I have to be honest about that. But in my case here, when we're dealing with a Congress that is ridiculous and completely just blocks any kind of move to make progress, what is he supposed to do?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I've been saying every week, that whether I believe if it was the other guy, if it was a Republican taking all these executive actions, people would be going crazy.
Yes.
MSNBC would be going nuts. So we still have to be aware of.
Although it is less than the past presidents before. But I mean, for me, Obama could have fought harder to protect the environment and regulations. I know that he was up over a barrel with it, but that's been disappointing about his presidency.
He did have a supermajority for a certain amount of time, like 9 months or something like that. Final thought on this: isn't it in retrospect now crazy to think that Bill Clinton was impeached or almost impeached, or was he technically impeached? I forget.
No,
the blowjob, there was a blowjob and a cigar.
He was impeached.
He was impeached, but not.
Yeah.
So he went through. Like in retrospect, isn't that crazy? Considering it was really about a blowjob and the word "is."
Yeah.
Like
it was embarrassing. It was
a witch hunt.
It was stupid. It was stupid, and the way, I mean, not that I don't really care what other people think of us.
Yeah.
But the way we look to the world
was silly at that point.
Oh my God.
Don't we? Wouldn't it be nice if we looked that way to the world again, like America getting their blowjobs? Like that seems like the good old days to me, compared to everything they think of us now.
Right. The '90s, the last great decade. That's what they say.
I mean, I should get a T-shirt really, and that just says "Not my president." As far as like Bush, not now.
Right.
But I mean, no,
so
because
you'd have to get a time
I was
machine,
always saying exactly. There would be a lot of things.
It's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of things that I would have to do that I probably wouldn't move forward on, but
which are difficult.
But when he was around and people were complaining, I really was like, this is not who I wanted. He does not represent me.
Bush,
He does not represent me.
Yeah.
But then again, a lot of idiots, I'll call them idiots because I think they are, will say the same thing about Obama, that he doesn't represent them.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why we vote, and half the people hate the guy no matter what. So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. A little more politics for you. So this guy Ed Klein has written a book called Blood Feud, and it's all about how the Obamas hate the Clintons and the Clintons hate the Obamas. It's like Romeo and Juliet. And he summed up his book in a New York Post piece yesterday. Let's take a look at what he said. So Obama has authorized his chief political advisor, Valerie Jarrett, to convince Elizabeth Warren to run. She is the progressive, obviously in Massachusetts. We'll talk about her more in a second. Jarrett has held a series of secret meetings with Warren where she explained that Obama is worried that if Hillary succeeds him in the White House, she may undo many of his policies, basically implying that Hillary isn't as left as Obama is, and she's more of a centrist, and Obama's not happy about that. And Obama believes that Warren is the best person to convince the party that Hillary is out of touch with poor Americans and the middle class. Warren, in his view, would carry on the Obama legacy after he leaves the White House. Then it gets into a lot of personal stuff about why they hate each other, and that Clinton has talked about how much he hates Obama and all that stuff. We talked in the last couple of weeks a lot about how Hillary keeps pretending she's poor. She says she went into the White House broke and she came out in debt. No, just not true. She's never not had a meal that she wanted to have at any fancy restaurant. But I think this is kind of interesting that Obama, he was her Secretary of State. Everyone thinks that, he brought her in doing this like Lincoln.
She was his.
She was his Secretary of State. Whoever, one way or the other.
Right.
But that everyone thinks that they sort of made buddy-buddy, and he did like the Abraham Lincoln thing where you bring in people that you don't necessarily agree with to kind of just coalesce around you.
It was a team of Doris Kearns Goodwin's.
Yeah, the book and the theory and the whole thing. So I think this is kind of interesting that if any of this is true, and I don't know that it is, but this guy seems to have done his research, that he really wants someone else besides her to run, someone that was in his administration. What do you make of that?
I mean, I think that this article is a lot of fear-mongering. So is the book, trying to be divisive in this moment and try to make Hillary seem out of touch and everything else like that. I mean, the Republicans should be afraid of Hillary running, and clearly they are. You know, I like Elizabeth Warren a lot. And so for me, the thought of her running for president is very exciting. We've had a Clinton and a Bush in the White House for a very, very long time. So to get a little bit of fresh perspective is exciting to me. But I think that this book is sort of a lot of fear that we're putting out there.
So I agree. And I don't want to focus on the book. It just sort of, because this guy, we don't know if a lot of this is true. But the general idea of that Elizabeth Warren would be much better if we really want change in this country, and the banks. I mean, Hillary's taken a ton from Goldman Sachs. She just took $400,000 for 2 speeches. Like, shouldn't we all want someone like Elizabeth Warren?
Is, you know, with politics, you don't always get the person that you want or the best person in office, because you really have to be concerned with who's electable.
Right.
And
so you think she'd be like off the deep end for most sort of middle people?
Well, I think she would be harder to put in office, I think. And I'm certainly no political sage, but I think that she would be harder to put into office than Clinton at this point. Clinton has so much momentum. And just there would be a lot that I think Warren would have to do to get up to that point. But I like her. I really do like her a lot.
Do you think Hillary risks her momentum's a little too early? I mean, this election is still almost 2 years away. You know.
But it's an important time right now. I mean, I think that you're absolutely right. Like Warren would have a very hard time getting elected, and Clinton's the shoo-in. Now, for me, Obama has to also see all that. We're talking about his legacy here. So.
And also, is this stuff really true what this guy said?
Well, that's all these.
The New York Post to me. I mean, you know, I see the name New York Post and I just go, ugh. You know, and that's maybe not fair. That's not fair of me.
You like how in the first 2 stories we've done, I linked you to Breitbart.com and the New York Post.
I know. I mean, like, come on.
I'm trying to keep things.
Sources.
Yeah, I'm trying to get sources that maybe we don't agree with a little bit.
But I think it's interesting to think about Warren in this case, and to also think about Hillary. And in this moment, it's important that we, I think that my party at least rallies around somebody who we think can really bring about the most change for this country. I don't even say change again, but you know, we're at a critical, we're at like this critical junction with the environment and with immigration now, and certainly with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to hang in the balance with whoever is elected next. So this is like a critical moment.
But also, you know, I think all of us are naive when it comes to politics, because who knows what Warren really is and who's behind her and what they're manufacturing for her and stuff. I mean, it's politics. There's got to be something.
I think that about everything, but you sort of got to just pick some stuff to believe and then run with it. Otherwise, you know, who the hell knows what's in charge? Who's in charge of what? I have no idea.
No, you know? I mean.
Do you think women would turn against Elizabeth Warren if she ran against Hillary? Because obviously women hugely are supporting Hillary, and I don't think it's just because she's a woman, but the idea that another woman would then try to run against her, which then they'd say you're going to split the female vote, right? You're going to split the female vote, and then because
I hope not, because that's so stupid. I mean, that's like.
But you know they'd say it. You know they'd say it, right?
Well, you know they love to do that. They love to paint women as cat fighters, you know, and that's insulting.
Right.
That's just insulting.
Men didn't turn against Ross Perot when Ross Perot ran.
No, but it's always, you know, women are always seen as a novelty still. We're a novelty. It's like that as a comic. You know, when you're on a show, well, we can't have 2 women on the show.
Yeah, we just had a
Why
woman
not?
and she said everything.
2 men on the show. Yeah, but you know, it's different. But you know, it's an unfair highlight. It bothers me, and not saying it's not going to be done, but it's wrong.
All right. So final thought on this: should we care what an outgoing president thinks or who he endorses? Like, even if you love Obama, whoever the president is, that at that point you had your run, you had your 8 years, you did everything you could do, for good or bad, and then at that point, it just shouldn't matter who you endorse. That's sort of what I think. Like
that's the George W. Bush school of it, right? Disappear into the
go to Crawford Ranch
and clear brush. I don't know. For me, I think it's vital. It's important what President Clinton comes and stands behind, and it's important. I think who W endorses, and it's important for me who Karl Rove endorses. Is important for me who all these guys, Rumsfeld. That is going to paint what I think of these people.
Definitely. like anything in life. I mean, you want to go to a doctor, you get a referral.
Right.
I mean, you know, you want to know what other people think,
Right.
whom you admire, or whom you respect, or whom you don't respect.
Yeah, although
You know?
whether or not the political climate shows that an endorsement from Obama is actually going to be a negative in the all, I mean, that's the other thing
Right.
we have to sort of look
Well, it's
at.
going to be negative to somebody.
Right.
You know.
Indeed it will. All right. An interesting poll came out from the good folks over at Pew. They're doing a ton of research over there. And Americans, we don't think America's #1 in the great numbers that we used to. Let's look at some info here. So the study found that just 28% believe that the U.S. stands above all other countries in the world, which is compared to 38% back in 2011. So that's a 10% drop in just a couple of years. 58% say it's one of the greatest countries in the world, along with some others, and 12% say that there are other countries that are better. Some 52% said America stood above the others in 2011. That's now dropped to 37%. And just a couple other little points of information for you. They also found that Americans 18 to 29 are at the bottom of those who view the nation as standing alone in greatness. Just 15% of those under 30 expressed that view today, which is down from 27% just a couple years ago. All right, so let's start here. Why is it that Republicans seem to love America more, even though their numbers are dropping and have actually dropped more than Democrats in these last couple of years? Why do Republicans love this country more than you crazy Democrats? What's going on, Cathy?
They don't love it more. They just like to wave the flag more.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has nothing to do with what they really think of it. They're just, you know, who the hell cares who's #1 anyway? I mean, what kind of bullshit is that?
Well, we're #1
You know?
in keeping our own citizens in prison and in drone strikes.
Yeah,
and
there's-
what
there's
else?
a
We must have a
little
couple
pride.
others. Bring, give me
Yeah.
something else.
Let's have
Sure,
some civic pride.
our crime rates, murder rates, I'm sure all of
Oh,
those
yeah.
things too. Obesity, we're probably
Obesity,
Obesity,
#1.
oh, definitely obesity.
There you go.
Yeah, carbon
let's-
emissions. I thought you were going to go
Yeah.
there.
Carbon
That may
emissions,
not
good.
be true now with India.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
So,
China.
I mean, but you know, it's always the people who are waving the flag, you know, the hardest and the longest, who just, you know, are really don't understand what's going on in this country
Yeah.
and don't really get the full picture. You know, they're defensive is what they are. They're
So-
defensive.
Yeah, so I'm with you. So
Yeah.
is there some weird thing? Like, I love this country. I believe in American exceptionalism because we've had people from all over the world come here to try to make a better life. But the reason I'm so critical of the country is because I love it. So I think that they sort of view it as, if you're critical, they look at people that are critical of our policies and think, well, you don't like what we are.
Tough shit, man.
Yeah.
You know, what's this term exceptionalism anyway? Well, I mean, that to me that doesn't have send a good signal.
Well, remember during the election, the first time in 2008, they asked Obama if he believed in American exceptionalism, and he
Yeah.
said, I believe in it just as Greeks probably believe in Greek exceptionalism. The
Good.
only difference is we're a nation that's made up purely of immigrants, so I do think there is something special there.
Well, I think there's also a fine line between sort of patriotism and nationalism, right?
Yes.
Like this is always the fine line that I think some in this country, the left, the right, sort of veer too far to the side, which is, you know, we're all, I hope, patriots. You know, I mean, then this country is incredibly exceptional in the sense that it's built by immigrants, that you have the freedom to criticize, that we can make a show like this.
Yeah.
Those
Right.
things are all pretty extraordinary, and we should be critical because that is what our role is.
Right,
as people
that's
who
part
vote,
of it.
Right? Yeah.
That's the whole part of it.
That is the whole
You know,
part.
they think it ends just by loving it. Being critical of it is what makes it so great.
That's the,
Yeah.
right, that's
you know,
the view.
and also it's those guys who are saying, you know, America love it or leave it, who
Right.
also right below that bumper sticker have those nudie mud flaps. You know, I mean, are you really going to listen to that?
It's a lot. Well, now we've lost our viewer in Kentucky. I hope that
Oh, damn.
Do you think there's a danger, though, for the young people that their numbers are pretty low? Do you think there's a weird danger for them not to think America's #1? Like, I remember growing up and it was so obvious. America's #1. You can do anything you want, et cetera, et cetera. And then
But you were a kid.
No, but when you grow up with at least that idea, I think there's something good about that. That if you think that the country you're living in is #1, that you can do something. You can just. Is that just childish naivete?
I don't know. I don't feel that it's important to rank
Yeah.
the countries. I think it's important to build a good country and be a good citizen and question things and make things better. I don't
Yeah.
really think it's important where you rank internationally. I think it's like the Olympics.
Right.
I mean,
Of course,
come
it's
on.
just ESPNing of the world.
I
but-
think that it's special that in this country, if you work really hard, I mean, it helps to be from a certain economic background in the beginning, but if you work really hard, you can make something really special. And when you look at the impact that even immigrants have made in the tech scene, especially in Silicon Valley, people have just recently come to this country, what they've done and how transformative, that's what's really special. So to me, like the fact that maybe kids don't think that we're number one, that doesn't matter so much, but I wouldn't want them ever to lose the fact that if you work really, really hard, you can do something really special and transform it. And I think that part of the problem and what's happened in America before is that American dream gets skewed, where you think if I might get lucky and become a millionaire or strike oil, and then all of a sudden I'm a millionaire. And that idea is like, I can be as rich as anybody else. Like, I can be whoever it is, Elon Musk or whoever it is. But like, the reality is you can't be that unless you are willing to dedicate so much of your time, energy into doing something.
And it's not all about money.
Yeah.
It's not about money, and I really hope the stress can be taken off of that. It has to do with contributing.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to do with getting.
Yeah.
You know?
Boy, you did not like Ayn Rand's books, did you?
I didn't read them, but I'm sure I would have.
All right, very good. All right, let's move on. Walgreens, the drugstore, that's where you get your condoms, razors, and give me something else.
Diaphragms.
Diaphragms.
I don't know. Why did I say that? You can't get those at Walgreens.
You can't?
You can't get diaphragms?
No, you have to have a fitting. You got to go to a gynecologist.
It's like
I have no idea why that even came to me.
Oh, all right. Well, Bryn, give me something. Your condoms,
Halloween candy.
Halloween candy, razors, not your diaphragms.
Costumes.
Do not go.
And occasionally Cheez-Its if you want to spend $18.
Yeah, Cheez-Its. Yeah, all right, all that good stuff. It's a drugstore. I think you know that, right? Robert Reich wrote a piece in a Huffington Post talking about all these corporations that are moving their corporate headquarters all over the place. And Walgreens is among them. They are moving their corporate headquarters to Switzerland. So all the time, and this is, I'm sort of summing up Robert Reich's piece here, and if you guys are TYT fans, you know all about him. CEOs complain that American corporations are suffering under a larger tax burden than their foreign competitors. The official corporate tax rate here is 39.1%, which is the highest. But the effective rate, what corporations actually pay after deductions, is far lower. In 2010, corporations headquartered in the US paid a federal tax rate of 13% on their worldwide income. So quickly, a little bit more info about Walgreens. They're the largest drugstore in the United States. They have 8,700 drugstores spread across the nation. And yeah, they're about to move to Switzerland. We've got some more info. So if they were to become a Swiss corporation, they will do just as much business in the United States. It's not going to change what they're doing here, but they're just not going to pay as much in US taxes. The rest of us will have to make up for the difference, which will probably cost taxpayers about $4 billion over 5 years. This means more money for Walgreens investors, of course, and top executives, which is why it's large investors like those fine folks over at Goldman Sachs have been pushing for it. So we've got a little more info, but before I blather on any longer, this is just the way America is now, right? I mean, it's just simple as that.
Everybody's looking for a loophole.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for a loophole. I mean, we all are. I mean, from individuals on up. But what Robert, is it Reich or Reich? I always say Reich, but I
said Reich, which sounds like
Reich.
Third Reich, and that's probably not
anyway,
right. Robert Reich.
We should find that out.
Thank you for, no, I think it is Reich. Okay.
But the point that he had made was that if they're going to be doing that, that they can't have the same kind of say that they have as an American corporation, which is an excellent point.
Right.
They can't sit on both sides of the fence.
Right. So if you're going to go over there, pay less in taxes, you're not allowed to influence the government the way they have been doing, and you've given me a perfect segue. So in 2010, Walgreens got a special provision in the Dodd-Frank Act limiting the fees banks are allowed to charge merchants for credit card transactions, resulting in a huge savings for them. If it became Swiss, the days of special provisions could be over. Since the 2010 election cycle, Walgreens Political Action Committee, Walgreens has a PAC, has spent almost $1 million on federal elections. If it becomes a Swiss corporation, it shouldn't be allowed to spend a penny more. Again, this is according to Robert Reich. I assume that you are agreeing with Mr. Reich in these?
I just, we've been talking about patriotism and being pro-American, and to me, this is an example of where we should hold these corporations and companies and CEOs accountable for being anti-American. I mean, this this doesn't sit, I hope it does not going to sit right with a lot of Americans. Certainly doesn't sit right with me. But you know, for companies that are making a tremendous amount of money selling all of us the drugs and the Halloween candy, they have to be able to share the burden in the taxpayers. And for some reason in this country, I think the right is going to allow Walgreens to do this and say that this is, how can you impose them or stop them or take your federal laws into what we're doing? And this is a big problem, right? Because it's going to result in higher taxes for those people who are supporting it as well.
Right, somebody has to make up for it.
Right, and you know what the real irony is that if they go to Switzerland, they're still going to sell the shittiest chocolate ever.
Right, they're not going to suddenly start, they're still going to sell Hershey's.
It's going to be shit.
Yeah, they're not going to get us any of the good
They're
stuff.
going to pick up none of the Swiss sort of, right, wow, that's a good point.
None of that stuff.
That is a great point. Is part of this that corporations have just run so amok that nobody plays by any rules whatsoever? Look, we had Mitt Romney running for president, a guy who admitted to having all this money in the Cayman Islands. Again, not illegal, so what they're doing, not illegal.
Unethical.
But we have no ethical standards, so it's as if we couldn't find a guy the Republicans couldn't find a guy to run for president that didn't have money hiding in another country. So is it that we just, it's systemic, we expect it from nobody.
But where is that outcry too? Where is that outcry from his own party that's saying this is unacceptable, this is un-American, yet when we go back to the Lewinsky scandal, it's impeachable enough that happens in the White House. So I absolutely agree. It's always baffled me that Republicans work against their best interests, and it happens all the time where they're voting against their best interests. And for people who don't want to pay that much taxes, then you should hold the companies that are making billions and billions or trillions of dollars to
and
pay
why
those.
Don't they?
Exactly.
Right.
Why don't they? Because are they afraid of them in some way? Are they afraid that it's going to bite them back?
I think to me it seems like it goes back to this government. Stay out of my business, stay out of my affairs. I mean, it's the same with environmental.
I love the government so much. I want it out of my affairs, and I want to hide my money from it.
Except when it comes to
roads and schools,
abortion, where gay guys put their dicks,
rights, those kind of things.
Final thought on this. Is part of this stuff, when you talk about all the money stuff and the corporation stuff, that there's just nothing sexy about this topic. So it's easier to talk about all the other, like if we were talking about abortion, people would get very passionate, or if we're talking about the death penalty or even immigration. But this kind of thing where you're talking about taxes and company, like
but
we just have no.
Back to it.
It all comes back to the same.
Because their influence.
Yes.
If they maintain an influence where they don't deserve an influence or have gained right to an influence anymore, that impacts all those other sexy things.
Right. So that makes this doubly worse. It's compounded that we don't talk about it enough because it's not sexy, but then they influence the policies.
It's numbers, you know. But all those numbers mean a lot to everyone's rights.
Somebody sent me a picture where they had a Mitch McConnell wearing logos of all of the, I don't know if you saw, logos of all the companies that give him money, and they said, wouldn't it be great if our lawmakers were forced to put on the logo in patches on their jackets of who's giving them money, like a NASCAR race. I love that idea, right?
No,
it's a great idea.
Pretty transparent.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I mean, NASCAR, that's what they do. They've got logos. Every inch of them is covered in logos. Well, guess what? Our politicians are exactly the same.
That would be great.
Yeah, let's do it.
Great. All right, let's make a movement for that. NASA believes they may have found primitive alien life on Saturn's moon of Titan. That's right. They sent their spacecraft Cassini up over there, and they analyzed the chemistry of the moon's surface, and let's take a look at what they found. Titan is the only moon around Saturn with a dense atmosphere that could sustain life, at least as the way we know it. 2 papers that published these findings by NASA claim that hydrogen gas from the atmosphere disappears at the moon's surface, suggesting that something is breathing it in.
Ooh, it sounds like a movie.
That sounds like aliens, right? It sounds like something. So my first question, every time we do anything on aliens, I always ask this first. When the aliens come, will they kill us or will we kill them first? And then
First of all, why are they the aliens? Why aren't we the aliens?
Well, if they're coming from a ship, then they're the aliens in that case. Right.
But we're the aliens to them.
Great. So which alien is going to kill each other in that case?
Maybe we won't kill each other.
You think there's any chance that if we
we'll
find
kill the Koch brothers, all of us.
we'll all team up with their alien technology and get rid of the Koch brothers?
Maybe.
You think that's possible?
I think it's possible.
I guess whoever would be the alien would be the one that's going, right? So if we go there and we try to join them on
whoever's on
foreign
Jupiter, turf, I guess is the alien.
I mean, I don't mean to sound like a sci-fi nut on it,
go. No.
I think I've always thought it was a little problematic that we're keep beaming this signal saying, hey, we're here. If you want to find us, we're here. Like, why are we telling the rest of the galaxy that we're on a planet that can sustain life? for me. I don't want to sound like a nut. Am I sounding like a nut?
No, it's a little war in the world.
If there's an alien that's going to come down,
right.
they're not going to come down to just have a scientific experiment. Clearly, they're floating around the universe looking for another planet to inhabit. So why wouldn't they just sort of clear us out?
So that's just using the logic of what we're doing here. We know that at some point we're going to destroy the Earth, and that's why they're trying to send. We're trying to do stuff on Mars.
When we discovered America, it wasn't just to say like, "Oh, hey guys, what's going on here? Good to see you." We wiped them out.
But you're basically these are human instincts that you're basing this upon.
Sure, I just think anybody who's going, unless it's the cloud alien from the gas alien from Titan, I don't think he's a threat to us, the cloud one.
Yeah.
So you think basically if someone discovers, or some life form discovers Earth, that the first thing they'll do is to take it over?
I think it's a chance.
Yeah,
probably one that we don't want to risk.
Yeah.
You've smoked a lot of pot and watched sci-fi movies. I mean, that's pretty much how I've come up with my theories on everything.
That's sort of,
you get that paranoia plus sci-fi,
right?
And then come up.
Dude, don't tell them we're on this planet.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but isn't that
something to eat?
Isn't that kind of the Avatar theory? That's what happened in the movie Avatar. We went there because we wanted their natural resources because we had already plummeted our.
I based mine
planet.
off scientific research, not just watching Avatar.
Oh, I thought it was just Avatar.
I read a comic book once. So it's really come up.
Okay.
It's not just from seeing Avatar, although that helped.
Yeah. No, but really though. So slightly joking aside, is there any chance, if alien life did come here, is there any chance we ultimately wouldn't want to kill it or it not kill us? The way we do everything, because you said human instinct, our human instinct, we're so afraid of what we don't know. We're afraid of what we don't know that lives on the other side of the tracks in the same town we live in.
You know what? Look, if it happens, it happens. I just, I can't really.
You can't be bothered?
I can't be bothered. I just,
you have enough problems.
I don't want to think about killing something else or fighting something else. I mean, if that other thing wants to kill me that badly, fuck it, let it kill me. I just can't.
Yeah.
I don't want to live.
I didn't know you were such a fatalist.
I don't want to live in defensiveness.
Yeah.
I just don't want to live like that.
I think that the probability
I say that now, but wait.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure when the aliens got the ray right in your face.
Somebody get in front of me.
Yeah.
I just think that the probability that who's behind the controls of the spaceship is like an alien with a soul that's going to have a debate with the other aliens on the board, like should we or should we not wipe out this, is probably a fallacy that any, it would probably be a computer that's running this machine anyway who doesn't have the same emotions that we would have.
Well, I have a feeling.
Spock occasionally did.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Occasionally.
So maybe we're all right. Let's just hope Spock is on board.
Oh, when I made my sci-fi reference, that was kooky, but you're going to Spock.
No, I barely know about this stuff. I mean,
he was the guy with the ears.
Really? No. I was not one of those. In school, I'm ancient, and when I was in school, and what's the name of the show?
Star Trek.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, thank you. So, all the boys would come in. Did you see Star Trek? It's all the boys.
Yeah.
Always talked about the Star Trek episode the night before, and I never watched it.
Well, you got Spock right, and then you forgot the name of the show. So,
yes,
all right. Well, this gives us a perfect segue. So the website IO9, which is it's a very cool website. They did something. The 7 global apocalypse scenarios that might happen, and we've got a couple for you. We're going to show you 3 quick ones, and then I'm going to sum up the rest. So they think one that is likely is a pandemic, and a pandemic disease loves city life, and half our population lives in cities. If the disease is virulent enough, humanity could be wiped out in a matter of months. So this is sort of like the movie Contagion, which I really loved. Pandemic crop diseases can be just as virulent as animal diseases because many farmers buy identical strains of staple crops from Monsanto and other corporations. All their crops would be vulnerable to the same infectious diseases. So let's look at 2 more real quick. Bolide impact. A bolide is a really large chunk of matter from space, often on fire, that can form a large crater when it smashes into a planet. I think the dinosaurs might know something about this. Often geologists will describe the event that wiped out the dinosaurs as a bolide impact. There you go. And one more. Large igneous provinces. A volcano that doesn't explode. Instead, a huge crack opens in the Earth's crust and lava bubbles out, oozing across the landscape, releasing tons of toxic gases and ash. An igneous province can ooze lava for centuries. Over time, that fills the atmosphere with poisons and wrecks the environment. And we've got a couple more. I'm going to put them on hold. Out of those 3, do you have a favorite? Which way do you think we're going down?
God.
Out of those 3. I've learned you're a real fatalist today, so you must have one of those.
I don't know. Well, maybe because you said it first, but pandemic to me sounds really viable. Because, I see these things getting worse and worse and worse, and we're chasing after them with different vaccines, and things aren't working anymore.
I think you want to root for the meteor impact, right? It's the easiest way to go. It's the quickest way to go. The virus seems like maybe it's a possibility, but it's a bad way to go. That's not a good way to go.
I'd like to go fast.
Yeah, you want to go fast.
You want to be actually hit by the meteor, not even wait for the wave to come.
I would like to be shopping and go, what? And that's it.
At Walgreens.
Yeah.
Well, I agree in that sense. Like the pandemic. Did you guys see the movie Contagion?
I didn't, but I want to see it. I hear it's really good.
It was great, but that sort of slow creeping death seemed much scarier. Although, they would know. We'd have a couple weeks probably of knowing that a meteor was going to hit, which can you imagine?
Well, we didn't know that one in Russia. When that one in Russia came by, we had no advance warning on that one. But yeah, maybe we can send, Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck up there to blow it up.
Another terrible.
Did you see that movie?
And maybe only have Ben Affleck come back.
Kabam! Zing! That's just another terrible Michael Bay movie. If you want to know my thoughts on Transformers 4, by the way, I posted a video about that. Now let's look at the other options that they gave us.
Options.
The other ways we can possibly die. Climate change. Okay, Bryn, I think you're going to have something on this one. Over the next century or more, changes will wreck our crops faster than a pandemic. Radiation disaster. Atomic war. Nearby gamma ray bursts. I guess this has something to do with the Hulk. Or a blast of highly radioactive particles streaming out of an exploding star. Invasive species. Moving plants and animals around the planet where they have no natural predators. And black swan. A sudden improbable development that changes everything. You got any favorites of these? These are all scary and they all seem possible.
I know the viability of them is horrifying to me.
Well, climate change is happening. And we're gonna, we've already seen the effects of what's happened when people don't have access to clean water and there's or fresh water. And there's, some who argue that what's happening in Syria is a result of this. And we're going to see the next wars, of course, be fought over water. I'm on my way next week to Bangladesh, which is, there's millions and millions of people who are under threat of losing where they live, and where are those people going to go if we think that there's an immigration problem now? It's going to be much worse when we lose a lot of the land that people aren't, including Los Angeles. Florida is in a lot of trouble, and New York City, of course, is in trouble too.
You didn't have to bring LA into this.
I'm sorry.
I just got here. I'm really enjoying it.
But as far as the pandemic goes, I don't know if anybody saw The Normal Heart on HBO. But I mean, look what happened there when the AIDS virus came about, and people just were dying and dying and watched each other dying, and there was nothing they could do about it. And that's just a little microcosm of what can happen with all these viruses.
So that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is
I'm your segue master.
You've been very on it today. Which do you fear more, the ones that we can't control or the ones that we can? Because something like nuclear war, I mean, we invented nukes. So we've had our hand in some of this stuff. Some of it, if an asteroid comes, we can try to stop it, but it doesn't have something to do with something that we did here. Which one do you fear would happen first, or do you fear one more? Or is it something about humanity? Like, we want to destroy ourselves, so we build nukes all over the place, and guess what? You build shit to use it. That's pretty much how it works, right?
The things that you can't control, you can't control. So why even stress over it? The things that, it's always the things that personally for me that you can control that give me more stress. Because I feel like, I should be able to do something about this. Why aren't I doing something about this?
I do think that the most where we're going in to see the most problems is going to be in what happens with our climate. It is going to be the threat of a nuclear war, and then the third one is artificial intelligence, which I think is something that people aren't as worried as they should be.
We're doing it every week here. I am a
You mean that they're going to take over and
they're going to turn on us?
Like Hal?
Like Hal, exactly. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen when artificial intelligence happens, which is coming up in a few decades. But for people out there, there are a lot of people who are optimistic about it, like Ray Kurzweil, and then there are people who are scared about it.
Well, no wonder Ray Kurzweil is optimistic. He's going to be controlling the whole damn thing until it turns on him and kills him.
Well, it makes sense. Any kind of advances that we make ultimately can end up destroying us. I mean, you look at all the advances that we have.
So final thought on this: does the government? Do you think the government has plans for any of these? Do they really have contingencies for any of these things?
Well, if you saw their incredible response to both Katrina and Hurricane Sandy, I'm sure that they are very prepared for whatever's coming.
Yeah. What do you think? You think they have? Is there a file somewhere? We don't know everything, as you alluded to earlier.
I can't even. I'm sorry.
Is there a pandemic file?
I know it's not good television, but I have no idea.
No idea? Nothing?
No, I really don't know. It's like, who knows? I mean, I can barely handle like all the things that we think they're handling, and then there's also other files in the back. I mean, I can't even fathom it. I'm sorry.
That's exactly why I'm doing this show, folks, because we don't know everything. So it's fun to talk about it, and who knows what'll happen. I want to thank Cathy Ladman.
Who cursed more than she ever curses in life.
The foul-mouthed Cathy Ladman. Bryn, do you want to get a curse in here before we...
No, I'm good, man. Yeah, you did it.
Their Twitterers are right down below, and check out their websites and all that good stuff. And we will do this again next week. All right, thanks.